Hey folks, welcome to Castle Caster. So I have now ranked all of the Critical Role PCs, and I've ranked all of the Dimension 20 seasons. So the next logical step is to rank the Dimension 20 Intrepid Heroes characters. I'm not including the side quest characters. These are all the Intrepid Hero seasons. I'm going to be ranking them from S to D tier, and honestly, this is going to be really difficult because I don't think there are any Dimension 20 characters like in the main seasons that I don't kind of love in some way. So I'm going to have to be really brutal in my rankings. I can't have them all in S and A tier. So, you know, I need to make this interesting somehow. I'm going to have to put some people in D tier, and that's going to hurt, and I don't want to do that, but I got to do it. So let's dive in. All right, and here we are. I have done my best to randomize the characters. Hopefully they're not bunched up anymore. I shuffled them around. So let's start this ranking. We're going to start with Princess Jet Rocks of Crown of Candy fame. This is Emily's character in A Crown of Candy, and I think Jet is a perfectly serviceable character. I think she is a really interesting in like she's it's sort of based on a very familiar trope. She's the princess who wants to escape and like be free and become like a commoner and be like a fighter and stuff like that. And that's all well and good. It's a trope that is very common, but it's not like a bad trope. It's a fairly interesting trope. And Jet fills that sort of niche perfectly. And I think she is a pretty solid character. She's not one of my favorites, but she is an integral part of my favorite season of Dimension 20. So I'm thinking somewhere either A or B. I'm not 100% certain at the moment. I think I am going to go with B, though. Yeah, B. I'm going to go with B. I do really like her, but also there's a lot of characters here. Next up is Norman Takamori, also known as Skip, who is Zach Oyama's character in A Starstruck Odyssey. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Starstruck Odyssey. I really like it, but I think the characters are easily the strongest part of it. So there's probably going to be a lot of Starstruck characters near like the top of the tier, despite the fact that I think I ranked Starstruck like B tier. So that's out of the way now. I think Skip, Norman Takamori, is one of Zach's absolute best characters. I think he's so funny as Skip. It's the way I don't want to spoil too much, but he's so funny. He's so good. The character he plays in the first episode is Norman Takamori, but at the end of the episode he introduces his real character, let's say. And I'm straight up going to put Norman S tier. I think Skip is absolutely hilarious. I love him. He's just so good. He's an adult baby. And if you've seen Starstruck, that makes sense. Otherwise, I don't know if that's going to make sense. Next up is Iga Lazowski from Unsleeping City Chapter 2. Iga sort of drops into the Unsleeping City in Chapter 2, since I guess Misty Moore, or Rowan as she was known as, sort of had other things to do, and Siobhan decided to play a new character in Iga. She's this sort of fortune teller type character. She's sort of a con artist, but also like a real magician. I think she's a genie warlock. And Iga is fine. I'm not huge on Iga. I think she's probably one of my least favorite characters in Dimension 20. I didn't really find that much interesting about her. I think the idea is cool. I like the idea of playing like a fortune teller in a D&D game, and in like a real world New York one, having them be a bit of a scam artist is kind of fun. But Iga never really caught me, so I'm gonna go. Even though I don't dislike Iga at all, I think she's a perfectly fine character. In relation to all of the other Dimension 20 characters, I am gonna put her in D tier. Next up, we have Margaret Encino. Unfortunately, the tier list has cut off the top of her head, unfortunately. R.I.P. But Margaret Encino is Allie Beardsley's character in Starstruck Odyssey. And honestly, Margaret Encino is like a high-tier Allie Beardsley. It's so fun watching Allie Beardsley play across the seasons, because they started out not knowing which dice was which, and then Margaret Encino is such an expertly built and expertly played character that it's hard to believe that they came that far. It's insane, and I love it. And Margaret is a very fun character. She's like this business person who is dissatisfied with their life within like corporate life, and I think that's a fun sort of character arc to go on. And Allie plays her really well. I really like Margaret. Not one of my favorite characters, but I do really enjoy her. So I think more than Jet. So I think I'm gonna go with A tier. And now we have Kingston Brown, who is Lou's character in Unsleeping City, Chapter 1 and 2. He is a cleric. City domain cleric, which is really fun. His patron or his deity is essentially New York, the city of New York. And I love Kingston Brown so much. I'm not going to go up and down all the time. I'm trying to keep this fairly concise, but Kingston Brown's one of my favorite Dimension 20 characters. I love the energy that Lou has when he plays him. Lou totally convinces me that he is like an old man when he's playing Kingston Brown. I think he's like somewhere around late 20s, early 30s. I'm not exactly sure how old Lou is, but like the energy and the voice and the mannerisms are just so perfect for who Kingston is. And I think he's one of the best acted characters in all of Dimension 20. I think Lou's one of the best actors on the show, but like Kingston Brown is such a brilliantly played character that I can't help but kind of fall in love with him. But also, as we saw in the Critical Role tier list I did, I really like supporting characters who are like old wise men. That's a trope that I really like. And I love like mentor characters, which is also what Kingston is for Pete in the first season. Now, he's not without his flaws. He's in sort of a messy relationship with Liz in the first season, his ex-wife. And he certainly makes mistakes. He sometimes says things that he regrets, and he's a very interesting, complex character. And I think the way Lou plays him is just so like beautiful and immersive that I can't help but just put him up in S tier. And next up we have Cumulus Rocks, one of Zach's characters from A Crown of Candy. Cumulus is sort of this cotton candy monk who works for House Rocks. House Rocks being like the noble house most of the characters come from in A Crown of Candy. Cumulus, I feel like, is one of the weaker characters in Dimension 20, but also that could just be because he followed up one of Zach's best characters in Lapan, which we'll get to him later. But Cumulus loves magic items, and he like kills chickens to get hit points and stuff like that. So every once in a while he'll like pick up a chicken and like break its neck to get some temporary hit points, and that's a very funny gag that runs throughout. And he's like very serious and like deadpan. It very well could just be because he followed Lapan, who's such a great character, but I am actually going to put Cumulus down in D tier. I think he's one of the weaker characters. He's great, but this is relative to the quality of Dimension 20 characters. Next up, we have Adine Abernant, who is Siobhan's character in Fantasy High Seasons 1 and 2. And I think Adine is probably one of Siobhan's best characters. I think Adine has, especially in the first season, this really interesting journey of like dealing with her anxiety and having anxiety attacks, which culminates in this really funny, weird, but touching moment with Jawbone at the end of the season. And I really love the way Siobhan sort of like gave this character like a disadvantage in the sense that she had like disadvantage on like any fear related rolls and would occasionally have to roll for a panic attack. I thought that added a lot to her character. That's not to say that mental illness is necessarily a disadvantage in real life, but mechanically it is for Adine. And I think Adine is a really great character. I'm putting her in A tier for sure. Next up, we have Saccharina Frostwhip, who has a bunch of titles. I'm not going to go through all of them, but she is Emily's second character in A Crown of Candy, and she was a very controversial character when this season aired. A lot of people really did not like Saccharina. I kind of get it because she was creating a lot of conflict within the party, and like she just replaced Jet, who a lot of people really loved, and she was also like Amathar's daughter, and it was this whole drama. Like I said, I sort of get it because the dynamic was very different and there was conflict within the party, but personally I loved it. I absolutely adored Saccharina. Not necessarily in and of the character herself, but what she did to party dynamics and what she did for the story. I thought was really fascinating, added a lot of tension, added a lot of conflict. And a lot of like actual play shows, you don't get too much like inter-party conflict, especially not to the point where you think they might actually like betray one another. So I was really grateful. I was really appreciative of Saccharina and Emily's sort of journey with Saccharina. So I'm gonna put Saccharina all the way up in S tier, which might be controversial. And next up we have Gunny from Starstruck. This is Lou's character in A Starstruck Odyssey, and Gunny it has some of the funniest, best moments in Starstruck. I think Gunny is such a funny character in his like gambling addiction, which not funny in real life, but in Starstruck is very funny. But he's also like super depressing in like a weird way. Like he does not own his body, which is one of the most terrifying things I can think of. He has to like measure his breath so he doesn't spend too much on breathing, which is insane. It was killing me the entire time. I love Gunny. Gunny is so good. All that said, Gunny is a very funny character and a very well detailed and fleshed out character. But in terms of like narrative, he didn't have too much going on, so that kind of brings him down a little bit in my estimation. That's not to say nothing going on. He had some stuff going on. But also, Starstruck was not a very story-heavy season. It was very much about the chaos and shenanigans and such, which Gunny was perfect for. Just personally, I didn't super connect with him like on an emotional level. He was hilarious. He was very entertaining. I didn't really feel too much of a connection there. Still, Gunny is one of the funniest characters, I think. As you can see, I'm rating a lot of Starstruck characters very high, despite me not being the biggest fan of Starstruck. It just wasn't the season for me. A lot of people really love Starstruck. I'm putting Gunny in A tier. Next up, we have our first Never After character. I haven't talked too much about Never After since it aired, but we have Pinocchio, which is Lou's character in Never After. We all know who Pinocchio is. He's a doll who wants to be a boy, who becomes a boy, but in Never After he turns back into a doll. And that's sort of where we are. He literally breaks off his nose so he can lie, and he uses it as a staff, which is funny. And Lou is fully committed, like usual, to this character. He's doing a very high-pitched voice, and there's a lot going on with Pinocchio. But when I was watching the show, I was really enjoying Pinocchio. But looking back, I can't really think of too many moments for Pinocchio that really stood out to me, which is kind of strange. I'm having sort of this reverse. Like most characters, I enjoy them in the moment, and then I come to appreciate them more afterwards. But with Pinocchio, because Never After has been over for about a week and a half now, I'm just looking back on it, and I don't know. I just feel like there wasn't a whole lot there. Maybe I'm not really sure. My commentary on the Never After characters will probably be less well thought out since the season just ended. I've had several years on some of these to think about some of these other characters. But anyway, Pinocchio, I think I'm gonna put him bottom of A or top of B, I think, because I really enjoyed him in the moment. It's just afterwards I've come to sort of think back and not really have too much to say about him. I think for now I'm gonna put him in A tier. And next up we have Cody Walsh, aka Night Angel, from Unsleeping City Chapter 2. This is Murph's character in Unsleeping City Chapter 2. I think this is the first Murph character we've gotten. Look at that. But Cody / Night Angel has one of the funniest character introductions. Like the first couple episodes of him in the series, he is so funny. He's one of the funniest characters. And then throughout the rest of the series, I feel like his relevance sort of falls off. He has some fun dynamics with Ricky, but otherwise, he's just sort of there, and he's making jokes. He's being very funny. He's a mall goth without a mall. The way he becomes a paladin is just so funny. And his quest for the perfect weapon, or the coolest weapon, is some of the funniest stuff on Dimension 20. But he is sort of a one-note character. He's sort of like a flat joke character. His relationships with the other characters keep him from getting boring, but he's still not super interesting to me. He's very funny, but not really engaging on a character level, if that makes sense. I'm a little conflicted, because if I was just rating him on what his character does for the story and does for other characters, I'd probably put him in C tier. But if I was rating him purely on comedy, I would put him fully up in S tier. I think I'm gonna put him in B tier. To sort of find the middle. And look at that, we have another Murph character. We got a lot of Murph characters coming up. This is Riz Gutgak, Murph's character in season 1 and season 2 of Unsleeping City. And I really like Riz. He's this really obsessive, wannabe private detective who is pursuing this mystery at the school. If I were to rate him in season 1, I'd probably put him in C tier. He's fun. He's got good moments. He's got a little bit of an arc with his detective work. Not my favorite character in this season by far. Not really my favorite character in that season. But I think like, I would probably put him in C tier if I was just ranking on season 1, but in season 2, I think he gets a lot more interesting, he gets a lot more to do, and his arc becomes a lot more personal. And to me, that elevates him fairly significantly. So I think he's going to end up in B tier for me. Next up, we have Misty Moore. She's Siobhan's character, and she is a Broadway superstar, and she feeds off of the adoration of her fans, and she's also a fairy who sort of like regenerates every like 50 to 60 years, so she can like continue to like live on the material plane and away from the Fey realm. She adds a really fun dynamic to the group because she's like this older lady, like her physically she's like this older lady, but also she's like very, very old. She's like hundreds of years old or something like that, and she has like this spat with Titania, which is really fun. And she has a whole battle sort of centered around her, that where if she failed like a ritual, she would die. And I think she added a lot to Unsleeping City, and I'm trying to not put everyone in S and A tier, so I need to just calm down. Misty, I think, is sort of like a upper. I think A tier. I think I'm gonna have to go with A tier, because I putting her in B tier feels wrong. She's not quite S tier for me, so I think I'm gonna put her up in A. And next up, we have Sir Theobald Gumbar, who is a gummy bear knight of House Rocks. And he is Murph's character in Crown of Candy. And I really, really love Sir Theobald. I really like that Murph played like a super lawful good character, because I think that sort of fits perfectly within like his play style and his like personality. He often plays very like messy characters, I guess, but Sir Theobald is sort of the opposite of most of the other characters that he played. I guess Riz is fairly lawful. It's just he's also a goblin and has like sort of gross out comedy tendencies as well. But Sir Theobald is pure law. I'm gonna have to put him in A because that's where he belongs. But like, I need to start being a little harsher. Being harsh is very difficult with Dimension 20 characters. I love them all. And next up, we have another Never After character in Puss in Boots, Zach Oyama's character. And Puss in Boots is just he's a cat. He's a little cat who's got boots. And they literally made him, I believe, like tiny in D&D sized categories. And as usual, Zach is I think Pib is probably up there with Pib, Puss in Boots abbreviation. I think Pib is probably one of Zach's best characters. He is so much fun in Never After. And man, I need to be harsher. I need to put somebody in C. I don't have anybody in C yet. Yeah, Puss in Boots. He's just a little tricky cat. He's just a clever little tricky cat, and that's kind of like the extent of his character. He doesn't really have too much going on in terms of his arc. The way he interacts with the rest of the party and the way he interacts with the plot, I think, is very expertly navigated. And again, I want to put him in A tier, but I have too many people in A tier already. Oh no. I might have to do a little bit of rearranging, but Puss in Boots is great. I love him. I'm gonna put him in A tier. I just gotta. And next up, we have Liam Wilhelmina, which is Ali's character in Crown of Candy. And Liam is a ranger. He has like this sort of he's a sea guy, not a war guy. But then some things happen, and he kind of becomes a war guy, and he becomes like one of the most effective war guys out there. And he's a lot of fun. He comes from a very interesting family dynamic, and to me, one of the less interesting characters in Crown of Candy, but still a really entertaining character. I think I am going to put Liam in B tier. Maybe the highest and a B tier, but I reserve the right to change my mind. And next up, we have Gorgug Thistlespring. Gorgug is Zach Oyama's character in season 1 of Fantasy High. I think Gorgug is a character who would not be particularly interesting if it weren't for the person playing him. Zach elevates this sort of very basic, not super interesting character concept and makes him really funny and charming and interesting. And Zach, I just put out a video about how Zach makes simplicity interesting, and that's sort of the whole thing he does. But I think Gorgug is more of a flat character than most of the other characters that Zach plays. I think like Ricky has a lot of dimension to him, and it's more than just sort of the simple character concept. And Gorgug, for me, while he has one of the funniest running jokes in Fantasy High, the first season especially, I think he's a solid B tier. I'm not sure I'm going to put him above Riz, but he has some of the best jokes and some of the best little performances, but the character himself, I think those jokes and performances are more Zack than they are Gorgug, if that makes sense. So I think Gorgug is going to go in B tier. And now we have Mother Timothy Goose, who is Ali Beardsley's character in Never After. Mother Goose is sort of this old man who is a witch, I believe they call him in this series, and he sort of has this relationship with this dark demonic gander, this goose that I guess killed his son and gave Timothy, Mother Goose, a bunch of wishes and stuff like that. And to be honest, the story, the narrative of Never After is a little hard to follow, or at least it was for me. It got very complicated and very meta. So I'm a little fuzzy on the sort of story details on it. If it were done in like a TV or movie format, I think it would have been fairly easy to follow. But with the chaos of like it being a live play or like an actual play, it became a little muddled, and I was struggling to follow exactly what was happening. I was enjoying it, but Mother Goose is sort of the center of the like main sort of philosophy and story of Never After, and I think Ali plays that really, really well. I just couldn't quite follow it as well as I wanted to. But yeah, Mother Goose is a great character, is implemented and is like integral to the story in a lot of really important ways. Personality wise, I thought he was kind of a little bit flat, but basically all my commentary in this video is me trying to be harsher than like I really feel, so I'm kind of struggling coming up with things to like criticize, because I love all these characters. This is hard. I can't just put everyone in A tier. I just can't do it. I need to put some people lower, but I think I'm gonna put Mother Goose in A, because despite the fact that I thought he was a little bit flat, I think that he was so integral to the story and so important to the things that were happening that I think I have to put him in A, because I really like the story of Never After, and he's super important to that. So let's go. We're putting him in A. I can't put too many more people there, but here we are. And next up, we have Princess Ruby Rocks, Siobhan's character in A Crown of Candy. And I think I can comfortably put Ruby in C tier. It's not just because I'm looking for someone to put in C tier, though I sort of am doing that. But Ruby, I think, is... I just thought like the twins were like in Crown of Candy, that's Jet and Ruby, were a fun concept, and I think it was a good idea to pair like Emily and Siobhan with their character concepts, but they didn't really have too much more to them other than being like rebellious teenage girls who learned the harsh realities of the world in a really horrifying way. But I do really like Ruby's relationship with Saccharina and their conflict. So I'm a little conflicted about putting her in C tier, but as like a standalone character, I think that's about where she belongs. And next up we have Sleeping Beauty, Siobhan's character in Unsleeping City, and I think that might... I don't have too much to say about Sleeping Beauty. I thought she was a fun enough character, but she wasn't really much of a standout for me in Never After. So I don't think I'm going to talk too much about her. I like her like sort of character arc of like realizing true love doesn't exist and how that's a good thing. I think that was a really cool concept. I don't think it was super fleshed out within the story itself. She's great, but like in relation to the rest of the Dimension 20 characters, I think she didn't really stand out too much. And next we have King Amathar of the House of Rocks, Lou's character in Crown of Candy, who is, in my opinion, sort of the central character in Crown of Candy. And I think Lou plays Amathar so well. He has so much heart, and he is so heartbreaking in moments. And I think he's like this very simple man who ends up being in a very complicated position, and I think Lou plays that so well, and I really love Amathar. I think Amathar is the beating heart of A Crown of Candy, and for me, he is S tier easily. And next we have Kristen Appleby's, Ali Beardsley's character in Fantasy High. And in first season Fantasy High, Kristen is very easily S tier for me. I think she has one of the most interesting and well-constructed character arcs in any actual play that I've seen. I mean, maybe constructed is the wrong word. I mean, it is in a sense constructed, but like it's not like built in the same way a character arc in a movie or a TV show would be. It's largely improvised, even if like the bullet points are sort of mapped out beforehand. Kristen easily S tier in season 1 of Fantasy High. Season 2, I think Kristen is a lot of fun and pretty interesting, but doesn't have nearly as much to do, except she does have a really, really great moment near the end. Allie's ability to pull natural 20s just out of nowhere is insane, and they have one of the best nat 20s at the end of season 1 of Fantasy High, and also at the end of Season High Fantasy 2, they have a really, really great nat 20 that sort of turns it into this really beautiful moment that I really, really like. So Kristen, for the strength of that first season, I would put her in S tier. And now we have Riki Matsui, who I literally just made a video about, more or less. Not about the character, more about Zach's playstyle. But Riki's I think is the epitome of Zach's playstyle, and I absolutely I love Riki Matsui. He's perfect. He's one of my favorite Dimension 20 characters for sure. I would be remiss if I didn't put him in S tier immediately. He's charming, he's funny. Like I said in my Zach Oyama video, he's like almost a flat character if it weren't for the heart and sincerity that's behind him. And I think that's what makes him so lovable. And as much as I like morally complicated characters, sometimes I just want to see a character who is just pure of heart and has no ill intentions and just knows what is right and what is wrong very like solidly. And then later on is given a little bit more depth in chapter 2 with just meeting someone that he doesn't really like, and that's like a big thing for him, which is really funny. But yeah, Ricky's great. I love him. And next up is Riva from Starstruck, and I'll be honest, Riva is probably my least favorite Starstruck character. Although she is still great, she's still very funny. I think Siobhan was having a lot of fun playing her. She's very like very fish out of water trope, which is very funny because she's a fish. She's literally a fish out of water. She's not a fish technically. I just sort of made that connection that like she's playing the trope of the character is a fish out of water, and she's literally like a water person. So while she's one of my least favorite Starstruck characters, that is still a pretty high bar since the characters in Starstruck are so strong. So I think she's gonna go in B tier. Next up we have Fig Faith from Fantasy High Season 1 and 2. She is sort of this tiefling rocker bard, very like rebellious teenager sort of trope, who sort of comes into her own, has a very complicated relationship with her parents, especially in the first season. In Season 2 it's a little bit better, but there's still some complicated stuff there. I think Fig is a really great character. I just realized that Emily's Never After character is not on that list. I will have to add her in a moment here. But I think Fig is a strong B tier character. I'm going to put her probably at the top of B tier because she's almost an A tier, but not... No, I think I want to put her in A tier, actually. I think A tier fits better especially because with the way that Fig grows in Season 1, I think is really remarkable. Oh, I'm conflicted. B or A? B or A? I can go with A tier, which means my face is blocking this. 1 second. All right, that's better. Next up, we have Pete Conlon, aka Pete the Plug from chapters 1 and 2 of Unsleeping City. He is Allie Beardsley's character, and I think Pete is a fantastic character. And I'll be honest, my first impression of Pete when I first watched Unsleeping City I was like, I think he's kind of my least favorite character. He's kind of a jerk in a lot of ways, and is just a mess of a person, and I wasn't really enjoying him all that much. But I rewatched it when I was doing my Zach Oyama video. I rewatched a lot of Unsleeping City, and I appreciated Pete a lot more than I did the first time. Obviously the fact that he's sort of a mess of a human being is part of the point of his story. He went through like a bad breakup, and he has a lot of difficulties with his family because he is trans and they're not super supportive of that. And he's also a drug dealer, which makes things in his life very complicated as of that. And then on top of that, he becomes the Vox Phantasma, like Ali says in the first episode when they're introducing Pete. He's not doing well. So I think Pete becomes a really, really complex, really interesting character. My vision of Pete became very, very different after rewatching Unsleeping City, and he actually has become one of my favorite Dimension 20 characters, surprisingly. Just sort of out of nowhere, I'm like, oh, like it just sort of clicked. I'm like, oh no, Pete's great. I love Pete. So I'm gonna put Pete up in A tier. A tier's too full. I have too many A tiers. which is annoying because I think a lot of these characters that are left here are going to be A tier. Dimension 20 characters are just too good, okay? I just like them too much. Next up, we have Fabian Arameus Seacaster, who is Lou's character in Fantasy High in seasons 1 and 2. And I think Fabian in season 1 is fun, has some really great moments, has a really, really great ending to his arc, and throughout the season is very funny, but I think is probably one of Lou's weaker characters, at least in season 1. In season 2, he becomes much more interesting and has a lot more chaotic moments and has like a full character arc, which is great. And I'm tempted to put him in A, but I think I'm gonna put him sort of middle B. I can't just put everyone in A tier. This isn't how this works. I have to be harsher. I don't like being harsh. But yeah, Fabian is great. He's just sort of middle of the pack for Dimension 20 characters. And next up is Barry 6 from Starstruck Odyssey, Murph's character in Starstruck Odyssey. And I think Barry is very possibly one of Murph's best characters, if not Murph's best character. I love the idea of him being a clone and like just being super bro-y with all of the other clones, and I think this is a side of Murph that we don't really get to see too much in Dimension 20. There's a lot of old college humor sketches where Murph like plays like a bro, like a dude bro, you know, that sort of archetype, and that's something he hasn't really gotten to explore in Dimension 20, which is why it was so much fun to see Barry 6. And honestly, I'm tempted to put him at the bottom of S tier. I really like Barry 6. He's great. He was so much fun. I think Murph was having such a good time. And no, it's good. I'm going S tier for Barry 6. And next up we have Lepan Cadbury, who is Zach's character in A Crown of Candy. My brain works. I'm sure it does. And Lepan is one of Zach's best characters. He's not quite Norman Takamori. He's not quite Ricky Matsui, but Zach just makes such great characters. Let's be real. And Lepan has one of the best like line drops in all of Dimension 20, even though he's only around for a short time. And I like seeing Zach play sort of like the stuffy old man, like just the very grumpy. We need to do things my way. And as I think Ali said, I think they said something along the lines of like he sounds like an egg or something, which is a perfect description. I don't know where that comes from, but Lepan is great. I think I'm going to put Lepan in probably somewhere. I've just kind of I haven't been doing too much of the middle of the pack rankings. I'm just sort of putting them all S, A, B, etc. So we're gonna move on from that. I'm gonna put Lepan in A tier, which means I need to zoom out again. Hold on. There we go. Now I gotta be mean. I gotta be harsher. Kugrash, Murph's character in Unsleeping City, chapter 1. Kugrash is gross, and that's the point. And he's a rat guy who is friends with cockroaches and crocodiles in the sewers and stuff like that. And he's a trash druid or garbage druid. I can't remember how they described it. But Kugrash is fine. I like Kugrash. I think he's sort of middle of the pack for me. Though he does have like a really great end to his story, and he has a really fun relationship with Emily's character. But overall, I do think Kugrash is B tier for me. And next up, we have Sundry Sydney, Emily's character in Starstruck Odyssey, and I think Sundry Sydney is probably my least favorite Emily Axford character. I thought she was, I just didn't really care about her story all that much. But also I think that's partly because there are so many standout characters in Starstruck that she just kind of got outshined a little bit. She was a fun character, she was a good character, but not much of a standout for me. So I think I'm gonna go with B tier. And next up we have Gerard Greenlee, the Frog Prince from Never After, and I think he's probably one of Murph's best characters. I think he might be Murph's best character. I really like Gerard's story of like his relationship with his wife and whether or not it's going to work out. I love the way it wraps up. I love the way they conclude his story. He doesn't really have much to do with the rest of the story, but I do really love his arc. Did I say that Gerard was Murph's best character? Because that's a lie. Because Barry 6 is Murph's best character, but I think that Gerard is really strong character, so good. I'm gonna have to put him in A tier. I don't have any more room. I do have some room. I do have some room in A tier now. Okay, we're good. We can do this. And next up we have Sophia Lee from Unsleeping City, chapters 1 and 2. And Sophia, I think in season 1 I probably would have put B tier. I think actually in season 2, I think I think Sophia is probably middle of the pack B tier. I think she's a lot of fun. I think I really like her story about like the chosen one, and it took Emily a little bit to like figure out what was supposed to happen on that when she climbed that building, and they're like, you need to choose the chosen one. She's like, but there's nobody here. It took her a little while to figure that out, but I really like that element of Sophia's story. So yeah, I don't really have too much more to say about Sophia. I really like her dynamic with I really like the element of her story that's also like with her husband and what happened with him. And I love the scenes where Dale, her husband, is like trying to reunite with her. And that's all great fun. But yeah, I think B tier. I think B tier is pretty good. And I have realized that Ilfa, Emily's character from Never After, is not on this tier list. Ilfa's an easy A. I think Ilfa is so much fun. Her Emily playing like a teenager is very fun, but also like a teenager who is like has a weird relationship with like death, like the god of death, and also one of Emily's like most min-maxed characters. I believe Ilfa is a totem barbarian and moon druid, which is absolutely insane. It doesn't do a whole bunch of damage, but it is a sponge. Like that build is insane, and Ilfa is also a shifter, I think, which might add more hit points on top of that. I'm not 100% sure how shifters work, actually. I need to look that up. But yeah, Ilfa is very easily A tier. I love where she started. I love where she ended. And the whole journey in between was very, very satisfying. So Ilfa, A tier. And so here we are. This is my tier list for Dimension 20 characters. I did not succeed in being as harsh as I said I was going to be. I think most people being A doesn't make statistical sense, I think, but whatever. It's my tier list. I can do what I want. And there's a lot more S tiers than I expected. I don't really do any preparation for these except for like getting these characters, getting the pictures and putting them up on the tier maker and stuff like that. I try to make sure I know all the characters' names, but I don't really think too much about how I feel about them until I'm in the moment, so I can kind of capture that moment. If I had done this on a different day, it would look probably completely different, but for today, this is what it looks like. And I was not nearly as harsh as I wanted to be, but you know what? That's fine. I really love Dimension 20. I really love the characters in Dimension 20. And even like the C and D tier characters, I don't dislike those characters. I like them a lot. I just like all of them. I had to keep zooming out so I could put more people in A tier. But yeah, there we go. That was my tier list for Dimension 20, the Intrepid heroes. If I missed anybody, please let me know, and I'll like pin a comment on where I would put them. But I think I got everybody. If you enjoyed this video, you might enjoy some of my other tier list videos. I ranked the Dimension 20 campaigns over here if you want to watch that. But if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you are interested in supporting my channel, go ahead and become a member. You get to see the videos a couple days early, and you get your name shouted out at the end of every long form video. Speaking of which, shout out to my channel members: Vifa Fox, Caleb Eggensberger, Z Nunn, Ali Silem, Wellaboot1, FireGen1, Paloma Hernando, my mom Moon Nerdy, Western Bradshaw, Exodus Faith, and Alex's Love. Thank you so much for watching.